Hi and welcome to a big picture on Monday the 4th of February. So what's in store for us this week, and what's the current sentiment? Well, the current sentiment I can't really tell you yet. In terms of sentiment, this is not being. It's been updated, but slowly. So they'll be updating a bit of it next Tuesday, this Tuesday coming, then Friday, then Tuesday, then Friday. So it's going to take a couple of weeks before I may be able to see a pattern of what's happened historically, but it's not very useful. So I can't really go too much on that. I could tell you what the sentiment is on retail traders. It's very easy to see, and it's quite balanced. I'm looking at three currencies here. I'm looking at the euro, where it's roughly 50-50, and ditto with a pound. I mean, I'm talking a couple of percent here, and the same roughly with the yen. So I'm looking at at least three pairs there that have a very similar sort of outlook in terms of. In fact, retail traders don't really know where to go with them probably at the moment. That's the answer. So let me just get rid of that. The pen's still stuck here. Let's get rid of that pen. There we go. Get rid of this. So sentiment-wise, it's very neutral. Is probably the answer. Just as a lot of things are a bit neutral. Now, we saw the Fed data coming out last week. Dovish outlook is pretty much expected there. We've got quite a bit coming out this week, but US wise, we've still got quite a few speakers coming out this week, including the chair is speaking later in the week as well. So there's plenty to possibly create some volatility within the markets, but there'll be key areas where we'll be sitting there waiting. So really looking at say US dollar, is it going to be sitting here in a steady position? We'll have to have a look. I mean, is there any more strength to come into it? We'll see. It's dithering at the moment, to be fair. But if the data comes out good, we could see moves in the US dollar, still strength coming in there. Is it going to roll over? I don't think it's going to absolutely roll over, and I think that's why there's this sort of sentiment and the look at the euro and the pound at the moment of not really going anywhere. And of course there's this Brexit thing that's holding over. Apparently, I don't know what it is, but apparently it's holding over the euro and particularly the pound at the moment. Looking then at when you try and put everything together for the euro, for example, it's choppy. The sentiment's choppy from the retail traders. You can see why retail traders aren't too sure where to go here. There isn't even a decent top for them to short or a bottom for them to buy at the moment. Really, it is very, very difficult. The pound is becoming similar. The dollar yen is becoming a bit questionable, but I'll run through these technically in a moment. But fundamentally, well, this week we've got the Bank of England meeting. Not expected they'll do any. Well, it's pretty much expected they won't do anything there, but they may talk about it. The inflation report is very key. And inflation was picking up. That could put pressure on for another interest rate increase, and it's sort of Brexit dependent. But if the data's still there, I'm sure and it's still looking solid with the rest of the growth figures. We could be seeing another interest rate increase, taking it up to 1%. Not this time though, I would add, but later in the year. Right, dollar yen average earnings coming out on the 8th there, so but not much else out there to report on. Aussie dollar's got a bit more detail. It's got retail sales, and then it's got the Reserve Bank of Australia rate statement on the 5th, and then the governor speaks on the 6th. It takes him a day to work out what he's going to say, obviously. Canadian dollar employment report on the 8th, non-farms that we're sitting in there, and then we've got that employment rate. So it's a lot of reports on earnings this week, and I say earnings, employment reports. And then of course we've got earnings still running through on the ES, so on the futures there, so that could create some reasonable volatility. Right, so plenty of volatility, but not a lot of direction or change in direction here in the plan. So let's have a look at the charts. And what are they showing us? Sorry, I'm on the CAD at the moment. Let's start it, put it through in order. In fact, I'm going to start right at the dollar index. I'm going to pop up first here and just show you what we're looking at here. Now, this is a weekly basis of the dollar index. It's it's still sort of, for all intents and purposes, in an upward trend. It is stifled around here a little bit, and it really depends on what it could do. It could just end up chopping around, and that's how I, from a fundamental point of view, see things at the moment, because the slowdown in terms of interest rate increases hasn't got the boost that it had, but the euro, which is a big percentage of the dollar index, hasn't got the boost either, so it's not like it can fight back the other way. In fact, the eurozone, we're seeing soft results coming out and very, very dovish comments, so it's who can be the most dovish at the moment. So dollar index, well, as I say, still largely an upward trend, hasn't broken that trend at the moment. So let's go on to the euro. Euro, to me, it's done a, well, okay, it's done a bullish pivot swing on the weekly basis here. It hasn't triggered that. It's got to get some legs on to actually trigger that. If it did, well, then we could be pushing up to the upper channel part that's sort of sitting there towards that weekly 100, maybe even to the weekly 50. Alternatively to the downside, which is really in a downward trend largely here, we could be pitching, let's just take this to a daily here. If we can get daily, where's my daily gone? There it is. Looking at dailies here, what's it doing? Well, if you took everything away from this and looked at the chart without the lines on it, well, it's chopping pretty sideways. Yes, it's in the moment, it's been pushing up from the lows here, chopping away here, but the 200 says it all. It's still in a downward trend from that perspective, but choppy. If it starts breaking through this 8 and 21 again, well, we could be pitching back towards the lows of 113 again, so it could be running back towards that. There's not a lot to cheer it up, to be fair. Okay, fundamentally, that is. The pound. Start off, if we can find the weekly on here, be good. So that's it. Go on to the weeklies first, and well, week before last we ran pretty much air kissed that weekly 50 rather. Bearish Harami at the moment. It's sold off to, this morning somewhat. It's showing you how little it's really moved, but it's bouncing back off its 200. We did look at, and I did look this morning, we took a short on it, but came out pretty much on our target level, pretty much in line with Friday's lows there, and that's okay. It's pitched a little bit lower, but it's still on that 200. It may still have positive potential in this. I'm starting to wonder if it's going to wear off a little bit though. Fundamentally, it's there's still the Brexit decision, and okay, with the no deal may be taken sort of off the table, but it could buy. It could just walk into it unless some sort of deal is made, and over the coming week we may see more or not or less of that. We'll see what Theresa May can try and twist arms to achieve. Technically, well, the monthly pivots below. There's the monthly 21 could just still draw price down to it. It still sort of sits as it has the potential to come off to those sort of levels. So if it rolls again tomorrow, it's just running up towards its weekly pivot here. It's not far short of it, so quite a push up at the moment. If it can break off and fall over and roll over again, maybe, as I say, a break of that 200 may give a better move back down towards the monthly pivot. Not massive, but I'm only looking over in the next sort of few days this week. I suppose the opposite side of that, what happens, where's the potential for the upside? Well, if it gets back above the weekly pivot around about 31.12, it starts looking and pushing and closing above that. Well, we'd be looking at least towards last week's highs, or the previous week's highs actually, and maybe even further, looking right up towards 133. That sort of area. Those prior highs up right the way up back in September last year. So that would certainly have potential. Right, that's the pound. You've got to scratch your head to why it's doing any good at all at the moment. Dollar yen. Dollar yen, well, it's trying its best to bounce a bit more here. It was a bit bitty. It's pushed through a some key resistance, I suppose. These prior highs here, it's pushed through those today. It put a pivot swing in. It's pushing up that way, and it's looking like it could be on for its monthly R1 sort of territory, that 50 MA, 200 MA sort of territory above. It could be pushing up towards that. If it just gets into a bit of a chop and starts selling off, well, we've got the monthly pivot at a bigger target, but it's put a higher low in at the moment. It's erring towards the bullish side. Okay, that's the dollar yen. Looking at the Aussie dollar, let's come out from the weekly perspective here. Right, it tried to break its original trend line, then it's not really succeeding, and wearing off a bit this morning, today already. Well, so today it sort of ran into the daily 200 and has rolled back to the weekly. Again here, it's sort of a pivotal area, not only of the pivot itself, but if it can find support around this area, perhaps it's got the potential to push back through that 200. It's maybe air kissed it, maybe touched it there last Thursday, but maybe has the potential. We'll see if we've got some support off the 8, maybe even the 21, and if it starts pushing up again, it may offer some more upside. If it pulls right the way back to the 21, I would be retargeted in the 200 and maybe more at that stage. That weekly 50 could be a sort of a target to the upside if it continues, but it is a bit choppy. We have got data out this week on it, so that's on Tuesday and Wednesday. So tomorrow, Wednesday, we've got data on it which could change the shape of that, make this all non-happen. Canadian data. So the Canadians are looking to see if they get some better data through. From a weekly perspective, we're still high lows, high highs. It's certainly pushing through this market. It has had this bigger correction here. Just air kissed the weekly 50 at the moment, pitching up as I speak. But when you look at this daily, it's sort of like in an A, B, and well, is this C finished? I'm not too sure. That could still roll back over towards the monthly S1, and maybe some more. As I say, very data dependent. We've got the employment report. We've got to wait until Friday for that. So well, we'll see. It could end up doing what it does so well, just chop along. But if oil was to start pushing up a little bit more, well, that would certainly give it the buzz and see it roll a little bit more. However, if oil gives up the ghost a little bit, we could then see this running up towards its monthly pivot. Very data dependent at the moment. New Zealand dollar, well, again, the employment report coming out later in the week on the New Zealand dollar. Where we were at, it looks soft, it looks weak, it's looking like it's not managing to get into even to that 200. You think be so close to it, it'd have gone up there and whacked it, but it can't at the moment. It's consolidating, I guess, and that's it. From the daily point of view, it looks a bit better. It's the high low, high high just sort of come through. It pushed up quite the way through last week. Came short of the absolute highs, but went into the bodies there, pushed into those highs at the moment. Where to? Well, I would be looking at the potential buy opportunities on this would be off the monthly pivot there. If it came back as far as the monthly pivot, it may push before there. If you're selling at the moment, or have sold, well, that would obviously be the sort of target levels you may be sort of heading for. It is in the weekly, it is on its weekly pivot at the moment and could just stall where it is, but we'll see. Fundamentally, it's not the strongest, I would say that, but it's technically, as is the Canadian dollar and the Aussie dollar, they're probably batting a little bit better than the European currencies. Right, that's pretty much that. And finally, he's running into the S&Ps. He's telling himself. So the bull run continued. Best January for a long time, apparently. That's from the guy that can't remember for how long it was, but it's been quite some years since we've had a January like it. It's recovered quite significantly. The bears were on the case, but yep, it had become a little bit of a bear market, but it's recovered so far. Can this is this a dead cat bounce? It's sort of taken a bit of a time to roll over. We'll see. We have got earnings sort of coming through from a lot of companies. It may stall things a little bit here, but there seems to be some good news with the Feds easing off and of course potential rumours that there may be a deal done with the Chinese, which could see these equities carry on pushing up, really. So with all that is good food for further upside, really. But in the meantime, it's really quite rangy. Friday barely moved Friday in terms of movement, and it looks like, well, today is a really slow day at the moment. Maybe a move back to that weekly pivot could give it a little bit of a bounce, a bit of something for support. We could get a move from there. Where to? Well, 200's gone flatlining. Look, literally flatlining. If it can break above that, which is possible, it could get back towards the monthly R1 sort of territory. Failure to do so, well, a break of the weekly pivot could see the monthly pivot coming in as support, or even the 21 that's coming up slowly behind. That's pretty much it. It is a bit of a dullish week there for the first week, but as I say, we have got some data coming out. It may just give us a few trading opportunities. Okay, have a great week. Bye for now.